Good evening, and thanks for tuning in to Real Talk with Karen Weaver. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you all, but before we get into it, we want you to like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. But today, I'm here with a returning guest. You were with us on Black Money Matters.
That is correct.
That is correct, and it's been a little while. Welcome back, Mr. Eric Culpepper. And if you missed him before when he came on, I just want to tell you that Eric Culpepper is the president and CEO of Black Network Associates, and it's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit urban economic development organization, and we're going to get into that. And I'm excited to have this conversation because this is the month of August. And one of the things we've been doing in August is highlighting Black businesses, even though we highlight Black businesses all the time and talk about economic opportunity, empowerment, those kinds of things. But this is National Black Business Month.
Right.
And so we want to make sure we're having certain conversations.
Right.
So that's why I want to say thank you for coming. And, you've been busy since the last time you were here.
Very busy.
You've been very busy because you have a book. You've written a book. And I want to talk about this book. It's Time to Elevate, Codes of Conduct for the Betterment of Black America.
Mm-hmm. I know that's a mouthful, but...
It's a mouthful, but okay, you're going to tell us about the Codes of Conduct for the Betterment of Black America. And I know that's really what your nonprofit is about, the betterment of Black America.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that. Tell us about this book.
So, the last time that I was here, we talked a little bit about how my nonprofit was founded and some of the principles that we were actually founded upon was through Claude Anderson, which wrote this book called Powernomics. And it's all about group economics because Black people are in the battle of economics. Believe it or not, it's all about limited resources.
Believe it.
Who gets it and who has it, and those resources that are in our community. And so, what we found is that when we practice group economics, we can be able to preserve the wealth in our community more so. That means that we have to build infrastructure. We have to have businesses. We have to have institutions. And so, even if we look at bringing reparations in, we hear a lot of talk on the forefront right now because it's a politically charged season now. And everybody's talking about reparations. But what I always pose the question to our Black leaders is that without having that infrastructure in place, Black communities are a bucket with holes in it because the money is going to siphon in and it's going to siphon right back out.
Well, that's what it does right now.
That's what's happening now.
That's the problem.
Right. It's a net that the water just runs right through without catching anything. And so we understand that the way economics work is when you have the capability to cycle those dollars within that community more than, 2 or 3 times to be able to really get the full effect of what those dollars are doing. So here's when we get to the book.
Okay.
So we know that it takes a psychological transition to be able to make the practice group economics because the question always comes up. We know that group economics work while we're not practicing it. And so what we found is that out of the transatlantic slave trade, Black people were prior to that, we had allegiance with one another.
Yes, we did.
And what happened during that whole course of the transatlantic over the 200-year, it broke that allegiance in Black people. So now other people, it weakened us to a point where other people are benefiting from our labor, our sweat equity, everything that we have that we can contribute, but we're not benefiting. The reward isn't there. So what we have to do is get back to having that cohesive relationship with one another, where we can love, support, and lift each other up in our communities. And in order to do that, we have to be able to have these codes of conduct. What this does is provide a roadmap for us to be able to practice. Now, this is not a comprehensive read.
Okay.
We did this on purpose, and we made this. You could read this in one afternoon, but it's packed with solid information. In the back of the book, we have something which is like 25 action steps that you can take, covering everything from social media, everything from civic duty, from political affiliation. Everything is in there to give you an action plan. Because, see, without action, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do. You can't practice the powernomics. You can't do the group economics. You can't do any of that unless you have a reformation of mentality. And so we're trying to bring about the Black community to have this reawakening, to understand our power.
Is that the infrastructure?
That is the infrastructure.
Okay.
And so when we have that, then there's nothing that we can't do. Because once we realize that, it's not, the Democratic Party, it's not the Republican Party. Because
it has to be us.
It has to be us. It's got to be from the inside.
Right.
It's not going to be some external force that's going to come in and change it from the inside. It has to be us. We have to take the reins of what's happening in our communities, and then we have to fix it and come together.
And the thing is, we have the power to do this.
We do.
We can do this.
We do. When you look at
We've gotten away from it.
Yeah, we have. But when you look at the United States as a whole and how we contribute to the wealth of this country,
exactly,
there's no reason that we should be at the bottom of the economic totem pole. And so part of what we're doing in our nonprofit is we have a revitalization action plan.
Okay.
This book is part of that action plan. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create systems that are going to stimulate income within our community.
Okay, I have a question. Why do you think it is? Because we know things have happened. We've heard about how we've had all of these different Black Wall Streets and all of these different places. I know Flint had, we had, every place has had, and they've been destroyed, whether it was, a lot of it was intentionally. Some places were set on fire,
Right.
People were killed, expressways have come through, all kinds of things have taken place. But why do we have to really be intentional about this.
Right.
Why do we have to work so hard to do this?
Yeah.
Other people do it. Other people turn over in their community. They turn their dollars over in their community. And we run and spend our money other places, and we're not talking about group economics.
But you know what? You bring up a good point. Because you have a keen power of observation when it comes to what's happening in the Black community. Because you mentioned all of the communities that were thriving at one time and were destroyed as a result. And Tulsa was the only one.
Oh, no.
There were over 100 Black cities that were destroyed on purpose because of what happened with the flourishing and the growth potential that was happening. What happened was when they broke these communities, and you can look at they'll have there's communities out there that if you Google and you go online, they'll talk about how they're underwater, like these Black cities that are underwater, where they release dams and have broken and have flooded out, and to kill the economic growth in these communities. And what they did is they put narratives and they put policies in place to make it so that this will never happen again. And so if you remember back in the old days, they used to have SNCC and CORE. They used to have these programs where you could go and you could learn a marketable skill, and you could take that skill out and you could begin to work for yourself, whether you're a beautician, whether you're doing auto body, whatever it was. And if you notice now, what do they tell you? The first thing is I just go to college. And you're getting a career field, which is nothing. I promote education. But the type of jobs that they're promoting now, you don't see them as a marketable skill to be able to be entrepreneurial at all. It's like you have to go work for somebody.
Right.
It's like if you're going to be like a school psychologist, you go to school, you go work for a school district or something like that. You don't see where back in the old days we used to foster the behavior to be able to go out and work for yourself, because it was a control mechanism. We understood that if we work for ourselves, we can leave a family legacy.
Right.
We can be able to build generational wealth. We understood it. And somewhere we have gotten away from that. But I think if you look at the root cause as to why this is happening, it's because the policies that have been put in place, the narratives that have been spread. Black people have been brought in. A lot of our Black leaders have kind of given us, they have given us this new agenda, that this playbook that we're now playing out now. And we can look back from 30 years ago and see where we're at now, and we can see that we have progressed very far. The Richter on the scale hasn't moved but a blip in terms of like economic wealth for the Black community. And so we got to go back. We understand that, it's these things have happened, but we cannot propagate them. We can't continue to keep that system in place that has.
Well, there are a lot of people that want that system to stay in place.
Oh, you
Now,
know?
it benefits a whole lot of other people besides us. It's not us. I mean, you get a paycheck, but you're dependent on that paycheck.
Right.
And I just think we need to be doing our own thing. And we have gotten away from a we mentality to a me mentality. And
It is. But don't get me started on that. That's,
okay.
ooh, I will get on my soapbox. I won't get on. Because, part of like, this journey that I'm on, and, there's some things that I'm learning about my people that I didn't realize before I started this whole process of, having an urban development organization. And, I see that there's going to be a divide that's coming in America. And it's not going to be between white and black. It's going to be progressive blacks and the status quo blacks. And what's happening is the status quo blacks are the ones who are well-to-do, they got positions, they're in, and you approach them to say, we need to have this type of resource or bring you into our community to be able to help us with, and you will see that it's an immediate wall comes up. I'm seeing this now. And so what's happening is there's definitive mindsets in black people. The ones who are like happy with the way things are, we don't need to change it, we have to go along to get along. And then you have the ones that say, we had enough. It's time for us to be able to do something. It's either you are with us or you're against us. And and so you got black politicians. They're going to be standing on the outside of the people that they claim to represent in a minute, because people are getting.
Don't get us started on that.
People are getting tired.
Right here in the city of Flint.
Yeah, people are getting tired. And so sometimes it just may be a case of that. I don't know if these people are too far removed from the black community. I don't know what it is. But there is something happening where it's like there's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect
between what they're saying
and as long as they're okay.
Yeah.
Then
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So the problem's going to continue to persist in our neighborhoods, in our communities.
And before we could build some black wealth when we were doing it the other way, when we were talking about the group economics. So that makes me want to ask you, because some people may not have tuned in before, because you have Black Network Associates.
Right.
And that was just, I thought that was such a good thing. And so tell us about Black Network Associates, because I got excited about that.
Absolutely. And so I mentioned our revitalization program, and we have programs for small businesses. We have something which is called Networking Black for Businesses. It is a program that we roll out for nonprofits and churches. And what it does is it provides a means for business to do more than just survive, but to thrive. We're all in survival mode. And we got to move out of the survival. Right. Yeah, we got to move out of the survival mode and get into the thriving mode. And here's what we do. We have put a learning management system on our platform. We have two, as a matter of fact. We have an internal learning management and we have an external. I'm going to tell you why this is important. It's because we know that education is the pathway to upward mobility. Say, for instance, if you were to go to college, you're studying for a career field. So you're preparing to go into like your job. Well, when you're in business, you can go to a business school and take classes to be able in marketing or business management, what have you. But by the time you graduate from high school, out of your college education, what's happening out here is obsolete in those books now. It's so it's like your accountants, people that are already in business, that are already are successful. We have a hub of those now on the BNA platform. So you don't have to go to the school of hard knocks and kind of beat your head to kind of figure out what should I be doing. Everything you want to know about digital marketing, everything you want to know about content creation, all of that we have on our platform. So the fundamentals that you need to be in business, because I always say that you can't run a popsicle stand without knowing computers. You have to know how to turn on a computer and navigate a little bit to be, and that's one of the pigeonholes that I find in the Black community. Is that the young kids coming up, they know they're born with a smartphone in their hand. But for some of the older generation, they're struggling with that. I can see them grappling.
Was he looking at me?
Were you looking at me? Well, you ain't alone. I'm telling you. So,
Look, and I claim it because I sure don't know how to do. I'm limited on certain kinds of things, right?
And it's a
That's
challenge.
right.
It's a challenge for most of them. So what we do is we
I
take.
just have a creative mind.
Yeah, I do too. I have a lot of creative. I'm a tech geek though, so I have kind of a combination of both.
Okay.
But so what we do is that learning management system that I have in place. I will tell you right now, it's about $4,500 in in class material curriculum that we have on our platform that we give away for free. And you have other Black organizations that will give you a pathway to learning and upward mobility like that, but they charge a lot of money for you to have access to those learning materials and things like that. We don't do that. We give that away for free. And I think, as I mentioned before, we have a basic level, and then we have a professional level. And that basic level, we basically give that away for free. It's $12 annual membership per year. And right now, during our soft launch, we're giving that away. We have a promo code. And so anyone that wants to join the network, you can get your, we have a virtual chapter. So what we found is that a lot of times Black people, this is one of the areas that we struggle in. We don't network enough.
Right.
And so we put that on our platform.
But you know what? A lot of times people don't recognize the importance of networking. They think you're just going and socializing and having fun.
Oh, I'm just going to get to that.
Okay.
I'm going to get to
all
that.
All right.
I got the stats. So we know in 2022, there was $24 billion that was generated in the referral network marketing industry. And this is people exchanging, this is just people exchanging business. 24 billion. And so what we looked at, we found is that of that 24 billion, the Black and brown communities was the least of that number. So what that showed us was we're just not doing it. We're not networking with ourselves. We're not networking with anyone.
Okay.
But that's a fundamental part of doing business. Just like that opens up other doors.
Right.
It segues in it. You have gatekeepers.
Exactly.
You have all these other things. And so what we have done is we've created, and one of the problems I have as a Black entrepreneur and businessman myself is that when I first started out, I loved the Xerox, and I went in to start my insurance agency.
Okay.
And what happened was I would join other organizations like BNI and Kiwanis and the Rotarian and things like that. And what usually happens is you would see that people would network with everyone else. They wouldn't network necessarily with some type of person of color. And so because what you got to understand, once again, it's economics. It's nothing personal that they have against me, but so they have to keep money.
It's a race thing.
It is. They keep that money in their community. So if they do business with me, that's taking money away from their community.
And you just make me think how things haven't changed in years, because I think about when my dad was living. He was a pediatrician, and it never clicked to me until I was pregnant. And I remember going to the doctor, and I said to my mother, I said, it threw me, because I said, my pediatrician didn't deliver my babies. My OBGYN did the delivery. The obstetrician did that. But I remember as a child, my dad was delivering babies, and he was a pediatrician. And I asked my mother, I said, how did that happen, that Daddy was delivering babies? Well, he was one of the few Black doctors around. The white doctors would not refer to him. And so he said, well, I'll fix that. And so he went back and got his obstetrics. And so he said, so he delivered and kept them. They stayed with him. But his colleagues, white physicians, would not refer the kids to him. Okay. So Blacks would bring their kids already there, but usually the obstetrician sends you to a pediatrician. Right. And so he said, I'll fix this. And that was how he did it. But I mean,
he stepped in and filled that role.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's something my mother would say is, ain't nothing changed but the date on the calendar.
Exactly.
Because, we still deal.
And that's what I'm saying. That was
some of the same
back
things.
then. That was in the 50s.
But here's what you're going to learn, though.
60s.
This is what you're going to find out. If you're working a job at a company, say it's a white corporation, and you're a sales rep in that company, When you're going out to do business, they know that you represent that company. They'll give you business all day long. The minute you step out on
And you
your
represent
own,
yourself.
this is what happened to me when I left corporate and I started my own organization. You could see the wall came up. All of a sudden, it was like, that's a black, he's a minority business owner. It changed. People that I had alliances that I thought was
That
friends,
you thought. You found
that
out.
I was close with, it was like I was on the opposite side of the table at that point. When the minute I wanted to go into business for myself, and this is the part that I want to make with DNA, is because we have to have an umbrella where we can come together.
Yeah.
Because here's what you need to understand: when you are a black business owner, you got the world set against you. When you come out the gate, first of all, your competition is already ahead of you. They're already capitalized. They already have allegiances in place. They already got resources. They have all of that. What you need is you got to have a base. You need to have someone in there that's going to provide these systems to you, provide the support, and be able to connect you with others that's going to give you a leg up. So now you can be able to compete with these other companies that are out there. They're just not sitting around. It's going to allow you to market share. That's not what they're going to do. Everything in their power to keep you right, so that they can maintain the control over the markets.
Well, and that is just still so true today. I mean, because I think back about when I was in office and they kept giving no bid contracts. Well, the same contractors were getting them. And they would make things so huge that the smaller contractors, they couldn't compete, and they would put things in those contracts that were so unnecessary, but they were necessary to keep us out. And so when I said, we're not doing no bid contracts, we're going to make this so people from Flint, small, local companies can get these bids.
Open source.
And I mean, and I always talk about how I was proud of it, but it was 2016. You're in a black city, and it's the first time a black company has gotten a multi-million-dollar contract from the city of Flint.
I remember how much flack that was.
And they were mad because we got some.
They were hot.
Yeah.
They were hot over
Even though they got contracts too.
Right.
It wasn't like I only used that company. But I said, doggone it, you're not going to have a crisis, and everybody else benefit economically off of of what has happened to us. And so I wanted to make sure it was Flint people. I wanted to make sure people that look like us had the opportunity to get those contracts. And then we expanded. And believe me, there's always enough money to go around.
I know.
There's always enough. But I don't want to share with you. I want the super size instead of the size.
Right. It's about controlling the resources.
Yeah. And it's about power and control.
Power and control and controlling the resources.
Right.
Absolutely. So this is my other thing too. Is that with our organization is we have a focus on churches. And I think I mentioned that if you Google and you look at how many churches are closed since COVID, because you got to remember, we couldn't congregate. We couldn't get together. The assembly of they disband all of that. And then right after, we had this raging inflation that haven't gone away. And so churches are reading from that, because what happened was, a lot of the congregation had to retool, because when the economy was shut down, people lost jobs. They were out of work. They had to go back to school. They had to, all the stuff that happened. Churches have not recovered from that.
No, they haven't.
And so what we're saying is, we're telling you ought to see these black churches. They are struggling right now. So what we're telling them is that you can no longer afford to be just a place of worship anymore. You have to become a community center. Now, what happened under the Bush administration is that he had instituted this thing called faith-based funding. And so churches can apply for hot lunch programs, after school. They can do homeless shelters. They got just a whole, myriad of programs that they can be able to bring into their church and get this funding. So what we do is we help set them up to become a 501c3, get their nonprofit, their tax exempt, and then we show them how to tap those funds. And so now what we can do is, on our platform, we have it where you can do a scheduler, where you can actually send out broadcasts and you can send messages. And so now once you have these programs in place, they can use the scheduler on our platform to be able to broadcast to everyone out in the community. that you have these other programs now. Now you give people another reason to come and visit your church.
Mhm.
So now you can be able to meet the spiritual needs, but you can also the physiological needs that people have.
Right.
You know, whether it's feeding them or clothing them, that's what the churches are supposed to be there
Mhm.
for. So we're saying you have to start embracing these other things that make that transition. So we have something for everybody. The small businesses we're trying to bolster, and then also that business in the box that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is also have nonprofits and churches become economic development arm in partnership with BNA.
Okay.
And by doing so, what it does, it'll stimulate money not only for the business community, but it also will stimulate money because we have an affiliate program that when people are upgrading and moving up to the higher professional level membership, it actually extends money to that organization. So not only they're helping their community, they're also being able to build their organization, and we created an additional profit center. So it's a win on three fronts for those organizations, for churches, creating an additional profit center for them, connecting them with the community, bringing in additional programs for them, and same thing, we're doing the same thing for nonprofits. So it's much needed work that we're doing right now, and we're trying to get all hands on deck. And that's what I mean by when we're approaching some of these other politicians and things like that, we think we're going to be embraced, and then we're just seeing walls go up.
Right.
So, and that's really disappointing when I see that coming from our Black leaders.
It's disappointing, and it happens far too often.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be more of the norm.
It
You know,
is.
and that's what we get. But you have a lot of people that are scared to speak up. You know, they're okay where they
Yeah.
are. They don't want to rock the boat. And we talked about those that just want to keep the status quo, and that's what they want to do. If I get out and try to support that, they're gonna be mad at me.
Right.